I just turned 20 and it took me about 1 year to go from zero understanding, zero capital, and zero technical knowledge to signing my first 20 build and release clients with AI infrastructures. But if I knew what I know now, then I would have done it so much faster. That's why in this video, I'm giving you a detailed 5-step guide on how you can start building and releasing AI infrastructures in 2025 and beyond. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear roadmap for identifying winning niches, crafting a productized offer, building AI infrastructures with software, and automating the entire process, making your service delivery quite literally copy and paste. And once you fully understand each step, you'll be able to help businesses scale with AI whilst generating a sustainable income from your laptop. But let me clarify, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a real business solving real problems, and you will need to set it up properly. You'll need to pay taxes and comply with any regulation. Now, before I dive into anything, I feel like I need to make a quick disclaimer that there is a major learning curve with this model. I personally spent the first 6 months just testing, redesigning, and learning how to build valuable AI solutions the hard way. So please remember that succeeding in this space takes a lot of effort and a lot of focus, but more importantly, patience. But the potential rewards are transformative, not only for your business, but for the businesses you're serving as well. And all of you watching are in the fortunate position where I'm about to give you the massive head start that I wish I had. So don't just watch and learn. I want every single one of you to watch and apply what you learn, because everything I'm about to cover is literally useless unless you take action. I have made these steps extremely actionable for a reason, okay? Now, let's get into the fun stuff. Now, step 1 is identifying your niche. Now, arguably, this is one of the most important steps, because I promise you, you will make considerably more if you are an expert in one niche rather than being average in 5 different niches. And when you're picking a niche, you need to remember that you need to solve a problem. No one cares about the specific system that you're selling. It's more about what particular bottleneck or inefficiency are you solving with AI. And don't reinvent the wheel, okay? I promise you, you're not going to be the person to come up with the brand new system that no one's ever heard of before that's going to completely change the game. What you need to do is pick a problem that businesses are already trying to solve and simply build a system that solves it faster, cheaper, and more effectively than its human counterparts. And in my experience, it's best to choose a niche where the product or service that they're selling is very high ticket. And the reason that you do this is because it's much easier to demonstrate a clear ROI when you're pitching to these kind of businesses. You also want to pick a niche where they're still very much reliant on manual processes. So a couple examples would be real estate. In this case, the average commission on a house is between 5 to 10K. And then in construction, again, one job might be around the same price point. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to have success in niches that aren't high ticket, because I have clients that have. But in my experience, being able to showcase that ROI means that you can, first of all, charge more, and also it's a great form of risk reversal if you can show the prospect how they're going to make their money back from the investment and then some. All right, now on to step 2, which is understanding the current infrastructure. Once you've identified a niche and the problems within it, it's time to understand the current infrastructure that's in place. And every business has its own unique infrastructure, which is literally just the systems and processes that it relies on. Now, your job is to build a more efficient infrastructure by leveraging AI. And the first step I take to do this is I break down my target niche into a set of pipelines. Now, for the sake of the video, I'm going to use ChatGPT to quickly show you an example, but I would highly recommend that you do some market research and speak to people in your niche to confirm that the processes you're looking at are actually what they rely on.
Right, so as you can see, I'm in ChatGPT now. What we're going to do is we need to come up with an example niche that we're then going to break down. So just off the top of my head, I think one of the easiest ones and most applicable ones for a lot of people is going to be the sort of agency model. I know I used sort of construction and real estate in the example, but I think this is going to be more useful for a lot of people. So what we are going to say here is you What's ideal here is it's actually done the stages for us. So it's actually meant that we haven't had to ask it to expand. We'll have a look over this and we'll see whether it's something that we can actually use.
Okay, so after massaging ChatGPT for a little bit, you should have something that looks like this.
So for an agency business model, it's the lead generation pipeline, sales pipeline, onboarding pipeline, service delivery pipeline, client retention and upsells, testimonials, and referrals.
Put simply, you just need a clear idea of what processes the business goes through from start to finish. So from generating leads all the way to collecting testimonials.
Okay, so I've just hopped into Miro, which is really good for basically creating a visual idea of what the system looks like. So I've sort of just put this together. I'm not going to go too into depth on everything because there'll be a separate video where I talk about the system fully in depth. But basically what you can see here is the process that the customer is going to go through. And all you're going to be focusing your time in is actually just increasing the amount of traffic that gets pushed into the system. Because once the traffic is fed into the system, they end up in the lead generation and sales pipeline. They work their way through that, receiving the different automations at each stage. Then when they make it to the end of that and they're closed, they get put into an onboarding pipeline. If they're not closed, they get re-nurtured until eventually they end up in the onboarding pipeline and they become a client. Now they work their way through onboarding, then they're going to automatically be put in the service delivery pipeline. Then they're going to work their way through that, automatically going to be put into the upsell and client retention pipeline. They're automatically going to be put into the testimonial pipeline at the same time. Then they're going to work their way through to the referral pipeline where we're potentially going to get additional leads. And then any leads that come through that referral pipeline, again, are going to be looped back around into the onboarding pipeline. And as you can see, this becomes a sort of cycle where once a lead makes it into the system through organic or paid traffic, it's quite hard for them to leave. They're either going to get nurtured until they get put into onboarding. And even once they're onboarding, we're going to increase the LTV of that client by either upselling them or offering a referral scheme where they're going to bring more people back into the onboarding system, right? So it becomes a cohesive system that sort of runs on its own. And all you have to do is push traffic into the start of the system. And once they make it into that first step, everything else is very much hands off.
Now that we have an idea of what our niche's infrastructure looks like, it's time to move on to step 3, which is building your productized offer. Now, I'm going to go into how you can actually build an AI infrastructure with software, but before I do, here are a few key points to remember when building your solution. One is that it needs to be easy for the client to implement. No one wants to pay you for something that's going to result in them having to do more work, especially when you've promised them it's going to save them a load of time. 2, it should be able to deliver a clear ROI, and the reason I love high ticket so much is because it's so easy to do this. For example, I would show the ROI with the lead gen and testimonial collection pipelines. So I would simply ask the prospect a question along the lines of, do you think over the next year, if I implemented this system that ensures you never miss a lead, that you might sign one additional job, for example? And you can also ask another question. If we automated review collection and boosted your ranking on X website, do you think that might result in you landing, one more job over the next 12 months? And the great thing about this is it's basically a no-brainer question. When we're giving them this much value, it's unreasonable for them to say, oh no, I'm not going to sign one additional client because of that, okay? And in the cases of, real estate and construction and those examples that I said, because their jobs are worth, 5 to 10K, if you can give them a system that's basically guaranteed to give them at least one extra per year, then it makes sense for them to pay you that same price point for a system that they can then use for, let's say, the next 10 years. The final point is that your offer should be scalable. The idea is that you build your AI infrastructure once, but you can install it into as many businesses as you like. If installing the system requires a lot of work from you every single time you do it, then your scalability is limited. So ideally, your infrastructure will be ready to copy and paste, and all your client will need to do to suit it to them is literally just make a few minor adjustments. The easier it is for them to implement and use immediately, the better. Before you start pitching, please, for the love of God, test your system thoroughly to ensure that it actually performs reliably under real-world conditions. The last thing you want to do is sign a client who's so excited to use your system just to find out that it doesn't work. All right, now I'm going to go into the software I actually use to build AI infrastructures, but I'm not going to go too in depth into how I build the individual systems within the pipelines because, quite frankly, we'd be here all day. But I'm going to cover the overarching concepts just so you can see how valuable this is going to be to your clients.
Now, we've got a full idea of what the business looks like start to finish. And then we've gone into Miro and we've, created a visual representation. So we're crystal clear on the sort of customer journey from start to finish. And we can see that quite literally moving through the different pipelines. Okay. So now that we're absolutely clear on the sort of systems that we want to build and the infrastructure that we want to have, this is where we're actually going to build it. Now, one of the platforms that I use for basically majority of my clients is Go High Level. And the reason that I love this platform so much is because of how many different platforms you can actually integrate with it and how we can actually integrate sites like make.com, vappy.ai, NAN. There's so many different ones where you can actually integrate your workflows into Go High Level and have it all hosted in one place, even if you're using multiple platforms, even like Zapier, any platform like that, you can actually integrate into Go High Level, which means, yeah, you can have it all in one place, which is ideal. Also, something to note is that we do actually give every single one of our clients unlimited Go High Level, so you can actually do this extremely easy, and I will leave a link below for that if you are interested. But getting into it, the first place we're going to go once we're on the software is into pipelines. So as you can see, I've sort of mapped out the pipelines. I've changed the names a little bit, changed the stages a little bit from what ChatGPT gave me, just because I think it makes it a little bit simpler. But the overall concept is exactly the same. And as mentioned, I'm not going to go too into depth. This is just to give you an overview and a starting point when it comes to building AI infrastructures. So as you can see, we have basically built out all of our pipelines for the different stages. We've got our paid ads pipeline, organic lead gen pipeline, onboarding pipeline, we've got loyalty program, re-engagement, service delivery, everything basically from start to finish. Now, what you're going to see is so simple, is that whatever your pipeline is, we're literally just going to give it a name. So we're going to give our lead gen pipeline, and this is what I've done for every single one here. And then you basically just map out the different processes that the business goes through, and we're going to put that into the stages. So, for example, it might be opt-in, engaged in DMs, etc. I'll show you one of the examples. So for the onboarding, this is what onboarding looks like. Our onboarding is going to be something along the lines of paid, the customer pays, then they get a welcome pack, we receive the form, the onboarding form is received, the onboarding call is scheduled, onboarding call attended, onboarding done. This is how you build an extremely systemized business where everything is very easy to track. You can see what stage your leads are at by simply just coming in here and flipping between the pipelines. But also, you know that when they're in that stage, an automation is going to go off so that you don't have to do the work. So I'm now going to go into how you can actually build that yourself on this software. So if I go into automation, the great thing about this site is that you have basically unlimited capability when it comes to building automations. There is a way to build basically any sort of automation, even if it requires, as I mentioned, other platforms. Okay. So if we just start from scratch, and you'll see how simple this is actually going to be. So what you would actually do is you would build a two-step, very simple. So what you would actually do is you would build an automation for every single step of the pipeline that you can. And this ensures that you only have to basically step in and provide your own personalized touch where it's needed. Other than that, the rest of the business is systemized. So what you're going to have as the trigger every single time, the trigger is simply what sets off the automation. So we want it to be the pipeline itself. So all we have to do is just have these leads automatically go through the pipeline. So the trigger in this case is going to be the pipeline stage changed. Okay. So if I go to in pipeline, it's going to be, let's just use the onboarding pipeline for an example. But as mentioned, this applies to every single pipeline. It's the exact same process for building it on every single pipeline. So let me just use the onboarding pipeline as an example, but this would be the same process for every single pipeline within your business. Okay. So if we go, pipeline stage. So let's say they make it to the paid stage, okay, of our pipeline. So basically what this is saying is that the trigger for this automation to go off that we're going to build is when someone makes it into that stage. And you're going to do that for each stage so that you have something going on at every single segment. Oh my God. So basically what this means is that the trigger to set the automation off is when someone makes it to this paid stage, okay? And we want something to go off as soon as someone gets paid, right? So now we're in the automation. What we're actually going to do is we're going to build an automation for every stage within every single pipeline. Okay. And as much as this is going to take a bit of time, once it's done, these systems will run forever and they will make your life so unbelievably easy. So the trigger is literally just what sets off the automation. Okay. It's what, notifies the automation. All right, it's time for you to go off. Okay. So in this case, we're going to go for the trigger as this pipeline itself. So you're going to choose the stage in the pipeline. So in this case, we've gone pipeline stage changed. We filtered it. So it's in the onboarding pipeline. We're just going to use this as an example, but the process is the same for every pipeline and every stage. We're going to choose the stage that we're talking about. So in this case, paid, when someone pays us. Okay. What do we want to happen? So now it's our choice of what we want to happen when someone pays us. Okay. Do we want them to get a text message where they get confirmation of, we received your payment. Here's the link to our onboarding form. Okay. So you can either have an SMS, or potentially we might instead want to have, an email with a sort of welcome pack, in which case we can send an email. We can send an email saying, welcome on board. Here's your onboarding pack. Okay. And the overall idea is that, okay, let's just quickly subject. So this is what one of your automations would look like. So this is one automation within your AI infrastructure, okay? And this is just for the paid stage. But what this means is that when someone pays and the payment comes through our system, they're going to automatically receive something, right? Which means we don't have to do anything. And what's also going to happen is we'll have another automation that says when someone receives this email, so the way this would work is when they make it to paid, they receive an email with their welcome pack. Once they receive their welcome pack with an email, we're going to update the opportunity again, and we're going to move them to welcome pack sent. Okay, so the way this works is they get moved to the paid section of the onboarding pipeline, they get their email, then they get moved to the next stage, and then we would replicate what we've done here in terms of the automation, and instead now have an automation for the welcome pack sent. Once we sent them the welcome pack, then what do we want to happen? Okay, what do we want to happen in the next stage of the pipeline, which in this case would be onboarding form received, right? Once the welcome pack is sent, we want to get our form back, right? So we would then create another automation that says when someone submits a certain form, they get moved into this stage. And once they get moved into this stage, right, we can actually manage them and be able to see, okay, we've received the form, we can actually onboard them physically now. Okay, so it becomes an entire automated system where you have an automation for each stage of the pipeline to move them through the pipeline, but then also at each stage of the pipeline, there's an automation going off, sending them an email, sending them a form, sending them a link, asking them for a testimonial if we, make it to the end of our pipeline and make it to our, testimonial collection pipeline. So once you've basically gone through and created an automation for every stage in your pipeline, all you have to do is watch your pipelines, and you can actually track where your leads are at each stage. And as I said, your entire focus becomes pushing traffic into this system. Your idea is to generate traffic and gather leads. And then once you've gathered leads, they're in this system where they simply just work their way through the pipelines. You can track where they're at by going into the pipelines and seeing what stage they're at. But you know that something is already going off, and you basically just create what you want to happen at each stage in the business.
All right, now that you have a fully operational AI infrastructure in the form of a product, it's time to move on to step 4, which is driving awareness, building credibility, and actually signing clients. Now, the aim of this video isn't to teach you marketing 101, so I'll keep this brief, but here's a few key points to consider. Volume negates luck. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because a lot of people come to me and they say, I'm really struggling to sign my first client. And I agree, the first client is always going to be the hardest because you don't have any case studies. You don't have any proof that what you do actually works. So in order to overcome that obstacle, I would highly recommend that when you're first starting out, you really focus on volume. Outreach every day, post educational content every day, and slowly build your authority within your niche. And even without specific case studies, you can still demonstrate your expertise and showcase real-world results from your solutions. Now, when you're outreaching or creating content to nurture, please do not focus on the systems themselves. As much as you may find it interesting, I promise you, no one cares about the systems you use to deliver results. They care about the results themselves. So in your marketing, focus on what the business owner can expect to achieve and not what you're going to do on the back end to achieve it. I'd also like to note that a lot of beginners accidentally position themselves as someone who is clearly trying to sell something. The problem is this immediately turns people away and really reduces the amount of people who respond to you. When you're targeting other businesses, the sole focus should be on providing them value. Show them that there's something they could be doing in their business to make more money or to cut costs. Position yourself as someone who has the knowledge that they need in order to grow, and then they're going to be willing to work with you. Now, there's a million different ways that you can do this, but the idea of providing value first is the exact same. For example, when you're outreaching, and you can send a Loom video where you showcase your expertise and give the business owner valuable insights that they can actually use. Or when you're running ads, you might give away something for free in the form of a lead magnet. You give away a resource that's actually useful. And then when people see how valuable the stuff is that you give away for free, they're much more likely to work with you to find out how valuable the stuff that they pay for is. In other words, give away as much as you can for free, and people will be willing to pay you to get more if what you gave them for free is very valuable. This takes me on to the final step, which is step 5, automate and scale. Now, the beauty of AI systems is that you can literally build them once but deploy them as many times as possible. So the way you're going to systemize your own business in selling AI infrastructures is first, build an infrastructure for yourself that you can actually run your business on. A great way to remove yourself from the business entirely is to spend time creating training resources. Now, the value in these is that it means your clients can actually benefit from the systems you're giving them massively without having to constantly come to you for advice, because you've given them the necessary information to manage the systems that they're using. Long story short, at this step, the idea is to reinvest the profits into refining your systems, increasing your marketing, and even expanding your team to scale higher. You see, once your system is up and running and you know how to deliver your service effectively and manage your clients, then your job becomes simply pushing as much traffic into the machine as possible and installing as many infrastructures into as many businesses as you can each month. And ultimately, you're left with a business that is a pleasure to run, has extremely high profit margins, and is unbelievably scalable. Now, I want you guys to understand that this is not my first business. I have tried and failed more times than you can imagine with every single different business model out there. And getting into AI is literally the reason why I am where I am today. And I truly believe that the best thing anyone can do if they want to build a stupidly profitable business within the AI space is to get around the right people. So like I said, I'll leave a link below for that, but if not, then I hope you get started anyway and take action regardless on what I've mentioned today, because I've literally got 18-year-olds messaging me saying they signed their first client within a month just from outreach, and I would absolutely love for any of you guys watching to do the exact same. The only question is, are you ready to stop procrastinating and actually start? And one more thing just before I wrap up, if you did find this video valuable, please subscribe, and that way you don't miss out on any of my future videos and you don't miss out on any of the free game that I'm putting you guys on. Put notifications on, and if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below. I'm going to be reading and responding to every single comment on this video. And other than that, I really appreciate all of you. Thank you for listening. I love every single one of you watching, and I will see you very soon. Let's make it happen.